It's social distancing at the chamber. My name is Garrick Taylor. As always, we are joined by the CEO of the Arizona Chamber, Glenn Hammer. Glenn, new topic today, tough topic, and that's what we're going to delve into today, but we've got some great guests to help walk us through this. Why don't you introduce our guest, Glenn?
Garrick, thank you. And I want to just thank Dr. Warren Stewart and AP Powell for joining us, and I'm going to give them a proper introduction, but we're just couldn't be any more appreciative for both joining this program. We've all experienced a great national tragedy in the death of George Floyd. This is something that should never, ever happen in the United States of America. And we want to use this program and some other programming that we'll do for ways that we could productively engage. And literally on this program, we have a living legend and someone who is fast working his way into being a living legend. So I'm going to first start with the living legend, and that's Dr. Warren Stewart, who's the senior pastor of the First Institutional Baptist Church of Phoenix, where he served since 1977. A well-known community leader, the Arizona Republic once called him one of the Valley's most influential religious leaders, and he certainly remains, in my opinion, the most influential religious leader. The Daily Star called him a living legend, so it's not just me. This is actually a real recognition that he's earned. And he's received many, many recognitions, not just in Arizona, but across the country, and his influence has actually crossed international borders. And Pastor Stewart is the man most responsible for one of Arizona's proudest moments, and that's the people of Arizona voting to recognize and to have a holiday for the great Martin Luther King Jr. And that, in large part, was because of Dr. Stewart's perseverance. We're also very fortunate to have my good friend, Alan AP Powell, on the program, who's not just a great leader in the state of Arizona, but this is a gentleman who is known across the country and has put all of his time and contacts, and this guy knows everyone, by the way. I mean, he was a big deal and has been a big deal in the entertainment industry for many, many years. He has served this country proudly as a veteran, and since coming to Arizona, he has been engaged in a number of different programs to increase knowledge of the issues that veterans face, but also to increase social awareness related to issues related to policing. And I'm speaking about his bridge program, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But AP has also received many, many awards. We've recognized him at the Arizona Chamber. He's been recognized by the Greater Phoenix Urban League. He was just rated as the Valley Man of the Year in 2019. So, gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you. We're glad to be here.
Thank you for the accolades.
Well, they're all well deserved. And Dr. Stewart, if it's okay, I would love to start with you. Just
sure.
How could we take this extraordinarily difficult moment, and how can we galvanize the community and the country for positive change?
We must recognize that the response, the reaction that we are seeing from across the nation and now internationally is that systemic racism has been a cancer in the American society, and even before America became America, against people of color. And the killing of Mr. George Floyd, the way he was killed, I mean, there have been many persons killed by police before, and they've been in protest, but the way in which he was killed, pleading to breathe, calling for his deceased mother, and the police officer just kept pressing his neck. That is inhumane, and it has touched a nerve that, see, people of color in America, especially African Americans, have been traumatized for centuries. And when we saw If you look at the expression of the police officer's face, it was almost like a smirk.
Yeah.
When we saw that level of inhumanity to a man who had his hands behind his back and was handcuffed on his stomach, and they would not let him breathe. That's all he asked. He didn't ask to be unhandcuffed. He said, I want to breathe. And so what we see is deep-seated hurt and profound anger and justifiable anger at this continued repetitive racist treatment of Black people in America.
You know, at Friday's press conference, along with members of the African American Christian Clergy Coalition, which I believe you chair, maybe over 100 or you mentioned a recent conversation with Phoenix Police Chief Jerry Williams, and can you share with us any of the comments of that conversation? Because she, in my opinion, is a model leader for all of us, and you know, I know that she is doing everything possible to make sure that people can peacefully and productively protest and get their views out, but do so safely.
Yes, well, thank you very much. And she is to be commended. I don't know if you saw, I'm sure you saw the news clips of the first night of rioting when someone took a skateboard and broke out the back window of the police vehicle with four police in it. But when they got out, I don't know if you know, they did not get out with their hands drawn. They kind of got out and like say, hey, what's going on? I told Chief, I said, sister, you doing your job. I said, because if somebody broke the windshield of my car, and I don't know that, and I don't carry a gun, I don't know that I would jump out and say, hey, what's going on? So she, since she has been the chief, she is training them not to react, but respond. So that right there is a key example. When I first saw the image of Mr. Floyd being killed by the police officer, well, one, it hurt me. I cried for 2 days. But I text Chief, and my text to Chief Williams said something like this. Chief Jerry, I said, I love you and respect you, but I am having deep problems with what the police did to that man in Minneapolis. She texted me back. She said, Pastor Stewart, when I view that, it is one of the most disturbing videos I've ever seen. She said, the police chief in Minneapolis is her colleague. She said, she knows him. And he's a good police chief. And she said, and she is the one that reached out to me she said, I want to meet with some of your clergy because we have to be proactive with this. And this was before the riot started. And then after that, of course, we finally were able to meet on Friday, and she keeps us posted. We text almost every day now. But I hope that helps to answer that question.
No, it does, Pastor. AP, I would love for you to discuss the Bridge Forum, and just it seems that this is a program we really need to not just ramp up here in Arizona, but it seems to me that this is a national program.
Yes.
Could you talk a little bit about that, AP?
Yeah, well, Bridge Forum started approximately 5 years ago, and it was a conversation between police and community was much needed. I've had support from Pastor Stewart, the clergy, business leaders, and everybody wants to, as Pastor Stewart said, be proactive, not reactive. So we thought that if we had a conversation and had the proper dialogue, when things like this happen, we would actually be able to have a pulse with each other, to have a honest conversation on how we diffuse these type of situations. And more dialogue, more conversation builds a better bond. Because there is, just being honest, there is a gap between police and community, because the police see things one way, the community see things another way. But one thing's for sure, we can't live without the police managing and providing security for our neighborhoods. And also, vice versa, the police can't be police without taxpayers. And we have to live in these same communities together, like it or not. One of the things that we've been able to actually find out is that we're happen to protect and serve. That is the mission statement for any police department in America. Protect and serve. And going back to what Pastor Stewart said about the young gentleman in Minnesota, he didn't even raise a fuss. He was standing up, he sat down, and how do you go from that to not breathing? As Pastor Stewart said. So we feel that the bridge forums are much needed. But the thing about the bridge forum is anybody can have a town hall meeting, anybody can go gather and have a bunch of people show up, but how do you have execution? How do you have follow-up? And how do you have people like the Pastor Stewarts who continue the conversation? Because, we can have, as this is the first time that this thing just didn't go away. We've had these incidents in the past, like Pastor Stewart said, but this is build up over those 400 years. This is build up. It's like anybody else. It's like when we all growing up, the guy just kept poking, and then there's that explosion that has to happen one day. And when you see a gentleman lose his life this way on national TV and during already trying times, we're in a pandemic. The world is already in disarray. Pay attention. We're in the house.
True.
We can't go out. We already having national issues on eating and getting food and can't go to restaurants and social distance, and our elders are dying and people are, losing their lives to something that we didn't foresee. And then we double down with this at this time. I just don't understand how, the police, those police, especially in Minnesota, couldn't understand the complexity of what's already going on in the world. And a gentleman loses life over $20, forgery, that you already have a relationship with. This guy, you work with him in the club. Two of the officers knew this guy, and this guy loses his life on somebody he knows, as I told Pastor Stewart. And like I told you, Glenn, that's like somebody looking for you, Glenn. They know where to find you. We come to the chamber next week when this thing blows over. There's nowhere to run. Everybody knows everybody. And that was just, to me, it was an assassination.
Yeah.
If you want to call it. It wasn't a murder. It was an assassination on national TV in front of the whole world. And that's why we need things like the bridge to have breakout sections. We had mayors, because a lot of times, Glenn, when we've been at the bridge, Pastor Stewart, these police chiefs are not the shot callers. It is the people we elected who control the police chiefs. But the police chiefs only have so much they can do. But it's these people we put in office to represent us that actually control the narrative. So these things are much needed to make sure that these people talk about what they really feel, and they don't have to feel like somebody's going to come after them because they voiced their opinion. That's why you have to have people like Pastor Stewart who would lead the way, and he's for all people. So if you see this demonstration was really different, Glenn, it's not just Black people. It's not. This is the first time you look at these demonstrations. It's not just Black people, Glenn. It's every ethnicity in the world: Black, white, Chinese, Asian. Nobody liked the way that this thing ended. And you can see this. You've never seen this camaraderie among every ethnicity group in the world coming together over an issue that does with police brutality.
AP, you're right. When you see protests in New Zealand, that's a pretty far way away. In the United Kingdom, this has hit a chord really across the globe.
Right.
Yeah, when you see Pastor Stewart, if you look at Pastor Stewart's alliances, he's got Catholic priests. He's got rabbis. This is not just the Baptist pastors that want to see justice done. This is everybody. And Glenn, you know what I mean, Jewish. Glenn, you're Jewish. You understand. It is what, everybody has their own religious beliefs. Everybody has what they believe in, but this is the first time we all come together for one common goal: justice.
Yeah.
No, well said, AP. And just as a Jewish guy from the Bronx, I'll just say, whenever I listen to Pastor Stewart, it inspires me, and I appreciate it even before we did the show. the pastor for our viewers said a beautiful prayer before we had this chance to talk. Pastor Stewart, I wanted to also ask, during the Friday press conference, you mentioned sensible solutions, and this is both for Pastor Stewart and AP.
Mm-hmm.
We work on all different levels, local, state, and even federal, and everyone is. I really believe all good people at every level want to figure out what are the policies we need to think about so that this never happens, and we could create a better, healthier community. I would just love any thoughts, and this will be an ongoing dialogue over the weeks and months to come, but maybe it's just some initial thoughts.
Well, here's what I have said previously, and I don't know if you've seen today's Arizona Republic. There's a front page article on, I think, faith leaders speak to the crisis, and it ends with a statement where I offer a solution, and I hope every one of your viewers will hear me out. This is a problem that has been created by the white power structure, systemic racism. And until the white power structure sees that the system of justice, whether economic, whether healthcare, whether public education, whether the penal system, until they see that there is embedded in the way we do business exclusionary principles and practices that leave out people of color, until we see that, confess to it. That's a biblical word. Confess, whether it was intentional or just generational, it's been passed down. My parents did it. My foreparents operated business this way. My ancestors did. Confess to it and then correct it. We don't just want equality, we want equity. Equality says everybody's created equal, but equity means everybody has an opportunity, the same opportunity to be successful. And so that's why the laws, the Brown versus the Board of Education, the Civil Rights Act, those were laws that dealt with equality, but not equity. And so how do look at slavery. So how do you free millions of Black people who have been slaves in 1865 and expect them to be caught up immediately with generations of non-Black people who have been running the country for 100 years? Equity says you find ways to bridge at gap. And like I said, this is the governor called for a meeting with us, the governor of Arizona, on Sunday. I had left church, even though we had in the sanctuary after 2 worship services, going to get dinner for my wife. I get a call from one of my close friends. The governor wants to meet with Black faith leaders at 4:30. Can he meet at FIBC, First Baptist Baptist Church? So I said, let me call my staff, see if any of them are still there. 2 or 3 of them were there. I said, y'all got to get ready. Then I had to call 7 or 8 faith leaders who all had been preaching, who were tired with their families, and we met. But what we said, and this was a conversation that was not nice, because the governor called it. I introduced it. I introduced those who were there, and there were white religious leaders there also. And after I introduced, and I read my press conference statement, and I told the governor I was disappointed that he put out a law and order statement and never mentioned the death of Mr. Floyd. I said, Governor, you say you are a practicing Christian. Where is your sympathy? I said, how can you put out a law and order, a statement saying we're going to arrest everybody who's damaging property in the protest, and you don't mention Mr. Floyd, who was killed violently by a police officer? And so it was not a nice meeting, but it ended with the fact that this is not a Black people's problem. We didn't create this. And the white power structure has to admit that it created a systemic racism and has to work with us and any person, all persons, to correct it. Long answer. That helped.
Yeah, and then
No,
also,
that,
and also,
thank you, Pastor.
yeah, and also to add to that, Glenn, one of the things that's concerning to me is the young generation. The young generation, as Pastor Stewart said when we did our 8540 Glenn that you came to,
Yes.
they're leaving everything in Arizona except for suicide. One of the things our young generations, this is great because a lot of people have a lot of time on their hands, and hopefully they're reading the books and understand history. But this is a repeat offender of history. Not only that, a lot of people need to understand what protesting really means. Because we're having people take advantage of the state of Arizona, take advantage of the community, and they don't even live here. Right. They find this agenda, they chase it down, they come into our neighborhoods, and these are the same neighborhoods that Pastor Stewart and the people before me fought to have the Walmarts and the Targets and all these things in the neighborhood, so we didn't have to go outside our community. We had the same thing every other community had, but these people come in and tear things up. I heard a gentleman say something, Glenn, that really shook me up. He said, everybody runs in, it was a young guy, he said, everybody runs into a tight situation. He said, but you see people running out of Walmart. He said, I saw all these people running out of Walmart and Target with clothes in their hands. I know how these people have kids. They left the Pampers and the baby milk. Nobody took nothing for their kids, their family. They was in there getting stuff for themselves. So this was an opportunity for people to take advantage of a national crisis. And Arizonans have to be aware because we have to live here when everybody leaves and goes back to where they at. Right. And that really scares me. And not only that, what we have going on now today, Glenn, and maybe you can answer this question because you're one of our leading guys on the economic side in this state. What happens, Glenn, when unemployment dries up? What do you think is going to happen then when Christmas comes and nobody has any money or any fortune? That's why we've been pushing, Pastor Stewart, Glenn, and everybody on the call. Garrick, we've been pushing for entrepreneurship because the workforce will never be the same. So people want to work for themselves and trying to figure out how to start their own companies. Like in the old days, Pastor Stewart's a little older than me, but we didn't have the opportunity to start a company and become $1 billion company from the dorm room based off an app. We live in a new day and time. So, you know, the young generation has opportunities that we never had. But the young generation has to understand the work that was put in before them and have to respect the blood, sweat, and tears that the forefathers put in to make the community safe. Pastor Stewart has marched. He's been on the front line for everything in the state. I've never seen Pastor Stewart bust out anybody's windows at their company. And it's so funny, even the Black-owned companies in the community got damaged. So you know this is this chaos on one side of it. Some people come to support and want justice and prison reform and all these things, but some people just come to take advantage of the situation and it's for profit. And it's really sad. So I just ask Glenn, you and some of your colleagues on the state level that you go all over the country, and congratulations being named one of the top 100 guys in the Chamber of the United States. But how do you and your colleagues, Glenn, across the country figure out how to create more entrepreneurship and how people can self-sustain when this unemployment dries up? That's the ultimate question, because I can tell you it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse.
Well, that's a fair and useful homework assignment for me. And, you know, and I appreciate just the candid responses, Pastor and AP. Garrick's on as well, so I don't want to, I know he may have a question or two, so.
Yeah, Garrick, go ahead, shoot away, Garrick. We didn't mean to leave you out. You know,
no, thank you.
You're the best groom guy on here. You got the beard shade. I haven't been out to get taken care of yet, Garrick.
Pastor Stewart, you've been at your church since the late 1970s, and we flash forward to 2020. You can shoot a text to the police chief of the city of Phoenix. I'm going to guess that it wasn't always like that the access that you enjoy today wasn't always like that. So could you just talk about the relationship between just the neighborhood where you minister and the police department? But also, could you just reflect generally over the decades that you've been in the Valley, the relationship between police departments and the broader community?
Well, yes, and I wanna correct something you said. When I came here in 1977, which was 43 years ago, First Institutional has always been a leading a leading church in the community. We are the oldest African-American Baptist church. So by virtue of me becoming the pastor, I have access. I remember a meeting with then Governor Bruce Babbitt with Black leaders at a former hotel called the Los Olivos Hotel. And I was the young kid. I was 25, 26 years of age. And the Black leaders, I had never seen a person curse out a governor to his face. And so, I mean, I'm 25 years old, 26 years old, and I see some of my elders at that time. The governor's security is right outside the room, and they called him every kind of mother. And, you know, I mean, and because the governor, I mean, the governor kept saying, well, you know, you Black people are only 3%. And this was a Democratic governor, and, you know, many Blacks are Democrats. And he kept bringing it up. And the guy said, well, blank, 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 blank. Whether we are 1% or 100%, you are the governor of everybody. So I have had access to the police chiefs, white, Hispanic, Black, I mean, for the last 43 years. And that comes with pastoring FIBC. And then I guess some of it comes with also trying to be faithful with the leadership God has allowed me to have. I mean, I don't think they would still call me if I weren't doing anything. So my goal is to get up every morning. God, help me to fulfill the purpose you have for me today. I didn't know I was gonna be on this Zoom call this morning. I've been on 3 calls this morning about a meeting with the governor on yesterday. I got another Zoom at 5:30 about leadership in the community. And today's my Sabbath day. Today's my off day. Thank you, AP. I only did this for you.
Well, I'm trying to get the habit, Pastor. So anytime I can think of something, I got to call you so you can keep anointing me with them good prayers.
Well, Pastor, I want to just thank you for being with us on your Sabbath day, and AP for your leadership and your friendship. And we want to be a source of progress as we move through this extraordinarily tragic situation. We want something to come out of it.
I'm sorry, Glenn. I want to applaud you and Garrick too, Glenn, because this shows you change. I've been here for 15 years, and I want to thank you for your leadership for the Arizona Chamber of Commerce, being able to reach out on an issue like this. It shows you the sincerity of, you know, where your heart is at. And also, you've been a supporter of the things we've been doing in the community. And I appreciate you coming out and supporting these things. And I know that you lead the business community, but the business community lives in these communities too, and they're affected by it. And I appreciate you taking the time to trying to figure out, be proactive and reactive and find out, be part of the solution, not the problem. But we need more leadership and people like you who rub elbows with these people every day so they can hear it from the horse's mouth. I mean, it's one thing for somebody to think what they know, somebody to know what you can tell them that came from the horse's mouth. And, you know, I've been blessed to have Pastor Stewart as a mentor. You know, I'm new to this town, and I'm just kind of combing my way through, but I'm just trying to figure out how I can make a difference. Like Pastor Stewart say, any day I can make, you know, today better than yesterday, you know, I feel like I'm doing my part.
Pastor, words for all of us to live by. Gentlemen, just thank you from the bottom of my heart for this conversation.
And God bless everybody on this call, and definitely God bless America, because we need it at this present time.
Keep the faith and be encouraged. We win in the end.
That's right.
Thank you.
Stewart, AP, Glenn, thanks for visiting. We'll see you on the next one.
Thank you,
All
sir.
right, bless you, sir.